What is going on, film fans? This is Let's Be Real Brad. So today on the channel, I want to talk about something completely different, and it's been a subject that I have been researching for the past couple years, and it's something that has always bothered me, and that is the hypocrisy of critiquing animated family or kids movies. If that sounds really appealing to you, and we're going to be talking about Space Jam: A New Legacy along with this video, then let's hop on over to the video. The biggest reason why I started this video is because of Space Jam: A New Legacy came out this weekend, which was the highly anticipated sequel to the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan. It had a pretty decent box office opening weekend due to the pandemic standards that we have, but also a ton of negative reception, as well as I didn't like the movie either. But there is a minority of people that have come out of the woodworks trying to defend this film like all these other bad movies that come out and people try to defend it. But in this one in particular really set me off because there is topics of how we can't critique this movie because it's just made for kids, or it's a kids movie and it's not made for you 30-year-old adults, when in actuality it really is made for the 30-year-old adults, because everything about this movie just screams nostalgia. Everything about this movie is gearing towards the older people. There are many references that kids will just not get, especially with the LeBron references that are from way back in the day that kids weren't even alive to watch. You got Rick and Morty. You have a bunch of action franchises that these characters go through that these kids definitely haven't seen. There's one scene where Granny drinks a martini. I mean, for crying out loud, this movie isn't necessarily a kids movie, but I would like to say that this is a family movie because kids will enjoy it, but I do think that the adults are the main audience because of nostalgia. And as all we know with nostalgia, it only lasts so long and it doesn't go that deep. Before we go into too deep with this, I want to define what is a kids movie and what is a family movie, because I think both those names are completely different. So let's start off with family movies. Family movies are basically the standard animated, live action, and other kind of movies that you see in the mainstream, like all the Pixar movies, Studio Ghibli, E.T., Harry Potter, and even Star Wars that a lot of people will not admit. When we have something like kids movies, those are movies that are pretty much geared toward the very young children, and those are ones that like a 9-year-old kid would absolutely not want to watch at all because he thinks it's just a baby thing. And that's mostly like these baby original movies that come on Nickelodeon or Disney Channel, or some TV shows like Paw Patrol. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about what makes a great movie, because I think that there's a distinction of that these movies are just made for kids, that they're just automatically good, and that they're soft and they don't do anything that pushes the boundaries of cinema, which is absolutely not true. What makes a great movie is having great characters, great story, to be entertained, to have themes and emotion that make you feel invested in the film, to have great technical achievement, to have so much artistic quality to it. I think that's a lot of things that many animated films have. We can look at plenty of movies like Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, Toy Story, WALL-E, The Incredibles, all movies that are absolutely spectacular in every way, shape, and form, and have everything that is considered to be a great movie. So how come they get critiqued more because they're demographically made for kids, even though it pretty much translates to the family movies? One of the things I do want to bring up is E.T., Star Wars, and Harry Potter. Those are definitely family movies for sure, as E.T., if you ran for inflation, is one of the highest grossing movies of all time. And that's just not because of the re-releases or just bringing kids. The adults almost have the final say of bringing the kids in there because they want to see it, because they know it's good. And a lot of people love E.T. even when they're older, someone like me. But then you have something like Star Wars, which is really interesting because there was an interview in 2005 with George Lucas, and he stated that the original Star Wars film was actually intended to be a kids movie or demographically made for kids. And it makes a lot of sense considering the massive toy line they had, the crazy amount of marketing, and it's very simple and fun story with likable characters. I can totally see how this movie was definitely made for kids. When we go on later in the franchise, it definitely becomes a lot more of the older crowd, but still a family movie nonetheless. So how come that Star Wars, the original, is beloved by everybody and is considered one of the greatest movies of all time, doesn't get the kids treatment? The next thing I want to talk about that almost tied into the last one is the box office numbers. The studios definitely know that they have to make family movies because we have seen in the past when you make a movie that's geared just toward the little kiddies, they don't do as well. And I know that sometimes that they do just burst off because so many kids want to see it, but how come there's so many movies like the Pixar movies that just pop off like Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, or even Finding Dory? Sure, there's sequels that we all wanted to see, but it goes more than that because the opening weekend is huge, but they make so much more than the opening weekend, showing that people have interest in it, there's tons of legs for it, and that people like these kind of movies than just kids. And it's not just nostalgia, it's just good movies, and that's just the way it works. The next thing I want to talk about is Disney World and Universal Studios. I won't go too deep into this, but this also supports my point of how that Disney and Universal have some of the biggest attractions in the entire world, and people still go there all the time. You can see people go on their honeymoon, you can see old people going there by themselves, you can see people going as like a little friend group, then you have the kids going there, and it's not just because it brings or reminds you of that nostalgic feeling, because remember when I said before, nostalgia only goes for so long and then it pretty much ends. But with something like Disney or even Universal, that even though Universal has more older movies for, you know, an older crowd, I still think that these attractions still have characters and things that we love because they're genuinely great, they're genuinely awesome, and Disney is pretty much geared toward that family friendly style that are demographically made for kids. So how come people are just going here all the time? Not just because it's a fun vacation spot and there's rides I get to go on, there's tons of shows, there's characters all around, there's the Magic Kingdom, there's so much of that, and people still go, which proves that it's not just a kids movie. The next thing I want to talk about is that animation is simply a medium for storytelling. I don't know why this needs to be said, but it always needs to be said that animation is there to be able to tell stories that we wouldn't be able to tell in real life. Sometimes it's going to be hard to have realistic toys walking around with other adult humans. There's a lot more you can do with animation. Try imagining a live action Spirited Away. I don't think it would work as well because there's so much creativeness that Hayao Miyazaki was able to create with that particular film and just have so much imagination with the pencil and the color that he was able to put into the film. The next thing I want to talk about is Best Picture nominations and Best Movie lists. There is a ton of animated movies that always land on the top 10 of all these yearly lists like WALL-E, Inside Out, and there's also ones like top 100 movies of the decade and all these things, and you see a lot of the animated movies are always on there. If you look at the top 250 movies on Letterboxd, animated movies on there. If you go to the top 250 IMDb, there's going to be a ton of family movies on there, even animated movies as well. That doesn't happen because they're kids movies. That happens because they are fantastic, well-made and well-crafted movies. But also I want to add to Up, Beauty and the Beast, and Toy Story 3 all being nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Say what you want about the Academy Awards and you don't care about the awards or not, but it's still an incredible feature that people from the Academy considered it as a legitimate movie to be competing with all these other movies that are live action adult movies. So that just kind of goes to show that people are taking animated movies seriously, or family movies in general. Last thing I want to talk about is something like Harry Potter. Harry Potter got very dark after the third movie, and it just went darker and darker as it went along. But as you remember, as the first two films, they were pretty light. They were more of the family-centric movies. But if you watch that at any age, I still think you'll get the same enjoyment as you did as a kid, and might find something a little bit more on your rewatch because that is what the studios are making it for. So now that I can finally officially wrap it up, we have to stop using the excuse of that these movies are just made for kids and that they just just can't be critiqued. But then if you're gonna use that logic, don't be praising all the good movies. Don't be saying this is one of the best movies of the year if it's an animated or a family film. Don't put Paddington as one of your best movies of the entire year 2018 for the second one if you're not gonna realize that it's demographically made for kids. And these kind of movies need to be respected and actually analyzed by people who are actually paying attention and not just throwing it on for their kids. And they realize, hey, maybe I'm missing out on something, and maybe these movies actually have something to say rather than just being a dumb, silly kids movie. So that is the end of my crazy Angry Brad rant. I hope you guys enjoy it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you want to, and ring that notification bell so you never get to miss a new video. As always, I will see you all in the following video.